Hello and welcome back to the channel. In the spirit of bashing bots, but giving Martin a breather, we're taking on the Magnus bot and finding out how many queens we need to beat it. Previously on this channel, I've added extra queens to an entire set of pieces, but I've never faced him with just queens. For the sake of the integrity of the science that we do on this channel, I'll start with one queen and then add one queen each game. Let's get started. Yep. That gets rid of my queen right off the bat. Yep, we're getting cornered here in just a second. And that went just about as well as expected. Let's move on to two extra queens. Alright, we're back with two queens, which is obviously better than one, but it's still very tricky because we're down 21 points of material. I think my plan here is just to attack very quickly. So I'm going to put some pressure on this f7 pawn. I'll play queen to b3. Okay, immediately he blocks it with e6, which makes perfect sense. I'm going to go ahead and reroute my queen to f3, create this battery, keep trying to put some pressure on him. And immediately he goes for the queen trade, right? Which for a human player might actually not be all that practical, because after this queen trade, it's my queen versus his whole army. And obviously most players would still go with the entire army, but you have to play a little bit carefully. I'm sure the Magnus bot isn't all that concerned. The only weakness I see here in his position is the c7 pawn. So I'll play queen to f4, try to hit that pawn, okay, and he very nicely plays knight to d5. Hits the queen, defends the pawn, and I actually don't think he has any more weaknesses in the position, so I'll just move my queen towards the center. a5, right? And this is what I mentioned a lot Martin should have done, which is just push, 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 and there's no way for me to get rid of the root of the problem, which is the rook. So this pawn basically moves without any blockade. I'll try to blockade it, queen to a4. He continues with normal development, which makes sense, because now that this queen is tied down to the pawn, there's not much for me to do but wait around. And I guess walk right into a fork. Okay, that could have been handled a little bit better, with a little more finesse than how I handled it, but it was going to end sooner rather than later anyway, so I'll go ahead and finish up this game. And we're met with checkmate. And actually, kind of a cool checkmate. We've got 3, 4, 5 pieces on our king, which is embarrassing a little bit, but it's kind of a cool checkmate. Let's move on to 3 queens. All right, we're back with 3 queens, which still puts us at a -12 disadvantage, but I personally feel a lot better. I feel like I have more attacking power. So I'll go ahead and start with the battery, which immediately he blocks off. I was going to follow up with queen to c4, but that just walks into d5 now. So I'll keep my queens near my king. I'll play queen to b3, then maybe I can line up queen to c4. Okay, we're met with d5 right away, controlling that square, controlling e4, a central square, and my options are already running thin and we're on move number 2. I'm not sure where else I can attack. Maybe I can stack my queens and look to break through on the c file. I'll stack my queens on the c file. Right, knight to c6 stops that. Can I sacrifice my queen? No, he would just take back with the pawn. I take with check, and then queen d7. Oh no, bishop d7, that's right. Bishop d7 stops the check, defends the rook, no more attack. So I'm not really sure what my plan is, but to cocoon in this position, so I'll do just that, right? He strikes in the center. I have no pawns that can challenge that, right? Unless I'm willing to sacrifice a queen to get rid of a central pawn. So I'm really just hanging out here until I get bombarded with pieces. There's piece number 1, knight to e4, which does weaken d5, so maybe I should keep my queen somewhere where she can hit d5. I'm thinking maybe queen to a2. I'm assuming he's wanting queen to h4 very soon. King to d1, knight check. No, but I can pick up that knight, so because I have this battery of queens. So I'll play queen to a2. We do get check anyways. I'll move my king over. Oh, that's right. And this is another big problem. I don't have any pieces other than queens that can hang around in front of my king. So any queen is basically liable to get pinned at any moment. So we've lost a queen. I might as well if I pick up this pawn, then nobody's defending the queen anymore. So takes, check. Cry myself to sleep, not much to do with that. So I guess I'll just bring my queen back. There's not much else for me to do. Oh my goodness. Oh my god, that is checkmate, right? Because the knight covers d2. Oh my god, I just played like Martin. Playing with Martin is making me play like Martin. Queen to c2 blocks off my king's last escape square. So instead of being able to move to c2, I covered it. D2, obviously the knight. E2 is pinned by the bishop. This might as well be back rank mate that I just put myself in. Oh, brother. All right, let's move on to 4 queens. All right, we're back with 4 queens. A lot more attacking power on the board, but it's still very unclear. My king is extremely unsafe. I guess I could assign 1 queen to stay near my king, but that's not very practical because if she gets pinned, she's gone anyways. So I guess I should just fight for the center like always, which is exactly what he's doing. It's just a little easier for him because he can put pieces in the center and not lose them. I'll start with queen to c4. Reason being, I can hit f7 with 2 queens, and d5 is not an option because I have 2 queens on that pawn as well. So queen to c4. Okay, we're met with knight to f6. Let's form a battery with our queens, keep trying for f7, which immediately gets blocked by d5. Okay, we'll jump in with check, which is also blocked, fair enough. I could remove the guard, takes, queen takes, takes, and then takes. That actually doesn't seem that bad. We get a queen trade, but that's assuming he recaptures. So if I take, and then take here, I guess I'm forcing a queen trade. Because there's no move that stops the queen trade and defends f7 that I can see anyways. Which isn't saying a lot with how much I'm playing like Martin now, apparently. But I'll try. I'll take on f6. Take on d5. Oh, and he takes with the e-pawn instead of the g-pawn. I'm used to calculating g-pawn takes because you take towards the center. But he looks for this intermediate check, okay, which does defend f7 and hits the king. I'll go ahead and just shuffle my king out of the way. I kind of needed that queen trade because otherwise it's hard to justify sacrificing that queen. Oh, we get pinned. I didn't even notice. Is that a pin or a skewer? If they're worth the same, does anybody know if that's a pin or a skewer? I'm tempted to call it a skewer. And you're probably tempted to call it losing because this is definitely losing already. Might as well reinforce the queen. It's not much to lose anymore. Sure, rook to d8. Give me a queen trade now, maybe? Okay, we get a queen trade. Takes some pressure off my back at least. Go ahead and play queen to b1, defend the back rank, and target b7, which obviously he puts an end to immediately. Bishop to b4, activates the bishop, defends b7. We'll go back with check. Okay, we've stopped him from castling, but I don't think he's very concerned about that. He's probably going to play g6, king g7, bring the rook out. La-di-da, everything's fine. So we'll play queen to f4, try to target c7, but we're met with bishop to d6. Fair enough. Okay, queen to c4, kind of a waiting move to be honest, and then here comes the pawn brigade. Queen to b3, bishop to b4 again. He's adamant that I'm not taking this pawn and destabilizing the knight, which makes a lot of sense. So let's bring, I guess now this queen is just stuck on h3. Didn't I start this game with 4 queens? I'm already down to 1 queen. Playing too recklessly. Queen to h3, stops the pawn, I guess, but now it's the king versus everybody else, so we'll wait around for a moment. Right, he starts centralizing his pieces. I'm sure this check is incoming. If king to e3, we get skewered. Everybody's gone. And if check, king back, I'm sure there's some follow-up there that I'm not seeing. Maybe knight to d3, looking for rook to f2. I don't know, something along those lines. Go ahead and retreat my king. Oh, that's so funny. He stabilizes the bishop on b4. Still can't move this queen because of h3. So we will return to e2. c6, this is seems like a very slow way to play this. Even like g5, king g7, g4 seems more active to me. But we'll play back. There's a4. I can't stop both of these at the same time. I can't do anything about it, actually. All right, king back. Yep, you did get me. You did get me. I wish I could play for like stalemate or something, but it's the Magnus spot, so that will like basically never be a possibility. Let's play, I don't know, queen b3. Target the bishop. Yep, and checkmate. All right, moving on to 5 queens. All right, we're back with 5 queens, and we're getting to the point where I can look to just sacrifice, draw the king out, and then look for a mating threat of some kind. If you guys remember, if you were there for the pawn horde video that I played against Magnus, I miscalculated. I think it was like a mate in 3 when all of this was filled with pawns. Well, minus these 2 squares and these 2, of course. There was a forcing mating variation. I ended up playing like g6 and fumbling the whole game, but I'm going to try not to do the same thing here. I'm assuming we should start with queen takes. King takes on f7. The next logical move in my book is queen check. Because if the king goes back, queen g6, takes, is checkmate. So that looks promising. Takes. We give check. Knight to f6 defends. And maybe we can jump in with queen to c4 check. d5 takes, the knight is pinned. Takes, we recapture, the knight is still pinned. Queen back, and then maybe take on c8. That looks right. So we'll take, we'll give check. Knight to f6 defends, queen to queen to c4 e6. Can I sack the queen? Takes. Queen takes on d8. We lose the f5 queen. Can I justify that? I take on c8. That's not mate anymore, but it looks like I can justify that. This bishop is pinned. I think that's pretty playable. Oh, I just noticed there's also queen to h5. And this makes a lot more sense because instead of playing towards the center, where he can start refuting with central moves, I move to the side. g6 is the only option, then takes, and then I give mate. And I don't think there's any other moves. Check. King moves back. Oh, there is king moves back, actually. So if queen to h5 and the king moves back, I wonder if I can just play check. e6, takes. No, that looks losing. Okay, let's look at that again. Check. The king moves back. And how do I take advantage of how badly placed the king is? Because this whole file is super weak, or rather, this whole diagonal is super weak. If I can just play check on this diagonal somehow, it will be mate on g8. So check, the king moves back. Oh, check, the king moves back. What about queen g6? Reason being, I noticed if queen c4, e6 kind of puts a stop to everything. But if I play queen to g6, I utilize this last queen that's on a dark square, put her on a light square where she needs to be, and then takes, and then like queen check. Knight blocks, I take with my queen. I take the pawn with my queen. With unstoppable mate, question mark? Let's try it. Check. King moves back. And let's see, queen to g6. Obviously the threat is f7 mate. There's no other way to defend except for accepting. Oh, but we need that queen c4 move first. So queen c4 check, e6. Queen to g6 threatens f7 mate. The pawn takes, that's the only way to defend. Well, actually queen to e7 also defends. No, there we go. Queen to e7 also defends that. Okay, what about check, e6? I move this queen to g6. That doesn't seem to work either. The biggest issue is that I don't see a way to weaken these light squares so that I can actually give check and deliver mate. Because it's almost smothered mate. I mean, just look at the position of the king. It's almost smothered mate. I just need to laser in through this diagonal to deliver mate. And it doesn't seem plausible on f7 because I've really tried to calculate queen g6 and I don't see any way to make it work. It seems to just give away a queen unnecessarily. Can I do it on e6? No, because there's only one queen on e6. If I add another queen with check, e6, takes, the bishop defends. So it's not on e6 either. d5 takes my queen. I recapture, and then we still run into e6. And that's the biggest problem, is this e6 move is just taking all of my options out of the water. If I could sacrifice a queen for e6, I would. But obviously that's going to take at least two moves, something like queen e3, queen takes. And by then, you know, he would have played e6 already. Oh, but what I can do, obviously this pawn can't defend anything. This pawn is doing diddly squat because it's pinned. So this pawn doesn't defend the knight, the e pawn defends the knight. So if I take, check, d5 is the issue, but then I have two queens on d5. Okay, hold on, takes, threatens mate, there's no other way to defend mate, this is pinned, has to take with the e7 pawn. Which is awesome, because there's no e6 move anymore, and then there's nobody defending d5. So check, d5 is forced, I take because both of these queens are on the pawn, there's only one queen defending, he recaptures, I take with check, bishop e6 is forced, and then mate. So we take, Queen to e8 is not going to cut it. Queen to e8 is just a free queen. So I take. He still has to take back with this pawn if he wants to recapture. And then I still have queen to c4. So takes. We'll play check, check, and mate. All right, nice. It only took us 5 queens to beat the Magnus bot, which is actually pretty surprising. Were we down material when we started that? Let me think. I think you start with 37 or 39. I'm not sure. One of those points of material. And we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, we were definitely out material. Okay, so we were up a little bit of material, but it only took us a couple of queens to win. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one.